A very warm welcome to you here at THEKI, your podcast for consciousness, health, and happiness. My name is Sandra, and today I'm talking to you about the new year, a look at 2026. It's great that you're here, and it's very important to me, before we begin, to say that I deliberately don't call them prophecies, but speak of time qualities, which can in part be calculated, but which have also partly shown themselves to me throughout the year, especially towards the end of the year in my multidimensional perceptions. Time qualities are basically fundamental energies, meaning chances and opportunities. And to what extent and in what way each person then uses them individually, that varies very greatly from one to another. The perception of reality is also very strongly shaped by the individual, and the recognition of all these connections is a very important part of being able to truly understand such a profound podcast, and also to be able to really use it correctly for yourself, because there are so many perspectives and there are so many individual possibilities in all these time qualities that everyone really has to perceive for themselves in their heart. What does that mean exactly for me now? So now I'm going to talk to you about this year, 2026, from various perspectives, and it's important that you are fully conscious while listening. It's best to breathe yourself into your heart with a few deep breaths, and stay, if you can, in conscious contact with your heart space the whole time until the end of this podcast. So listen to me less with your head and more with your heart. I'm now going to give you an overview of all the themes of the year and then delve deeper into some of the topics, say a few extra words about them. Please keep in mind that I've already spoken about many of the topics mentioned in very detailed podcasts, which you can listen to for free here on my YouTube channel. You'll also find a lot of detailed information in my books and, of course, in the seminars as well. So if some information isn't detailed enough for you, then go ahead and search on your own in my channel or the books, and you'll surely find everything you need. Let's get to this overview. So I already said last year, 2025 and 2026 are the core transition years in the dimensional shift. The dimensional shift already began back in 1987 with the harmonic convergence. It reached a new level in 2012, in which also purely mathematically the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, ended and a new spiritual age began. We are right in the middle of this transition period of 20 to 25 years. And 2025 has already brought about many changes, both globally and individually. So I've heard from so many people that everything has been turned upside down. And we could all, of course, also officially observe in the news, especially from the USA, everything that was uncovered, everything that changed, and so on. This acceleration and also the collapse of individual systems will continue through 2026. The density of events is increasing once again. For 2027, there is one big word, and that is freedom. You can probably imagine what happens to all the old paradigms on the way there. And we still have all of that ahead of us. If 2027 is freedom, what do we still have to, or rather, what are we allowed to free ourselves from now? In 2026? For some, it's not that much anymore. For others, it's still a great deal. And the way we all do this individually will shape the collective reality, because it consists of all of us. So that's what we have ahead of us now. And you could also say, and this was the image I received for 2026, that we're on a ski jump that we're practically racing down. And then jumping into the new order of 2027, there will be several cosmic initiations throughout the year that we will all feel. And there are certain periods, like from January to April, where very uplifting conscious energy prevails that we can use, mainly in the sense of self-discovery, in the sense of who am I? What am I here for? Who am I in 2026? Who do I want to be? What else is there to peel away? It's about finding yourself and also stepping into your power, really, really going into it, to activate what is still lying dormant within you and bring it more and more into your life. In other words, to manifest it. Interestingly, 3i Atlas is also still in our solar system until April, until it leaves again. And it is already a very strong energy. It was a very, very powerful energy, palpable the whole time for many of us, especially during the period from the 19th to the 22nd of the 12th. Then, when 3i Atlas was closest to Earth, it also reached its peak for us. And maybe you felt that too. It was a real boost in consciousness. And whenever something comes like these waves of consciousness that have flowed to us, then something also leaves. And we were relieved of some of the ballast of the old world. And it's all becoming more and more palpable now, from week to week, from month to month. From April, then, the end of April, I suddenly perceive a completely new energy. It's a kind of frequency shift. I was also shown visual images of cosmic waves flooding us and making a completely new perception possible as well. So I'll get to the awakening of the clairvoyant senses later, and that has a lot to do with it. Of course, always for those who are ready. And this new level from the end of April, that's a heart level. So there's a completely new heart quality there too, and that continues at least into June. And it will be a kind of sigh of relief for many of us who have been vibrating in this energy for a while. And now notice how the outside is finally harmonizing too. So how the gap is no longer so big, the difference is no longer so big, but everything can vibrate together again more. So that could actually be a kind of mass awakening, but maybe we won't call it that right away, but rather experience more chaos first within us, but especially, of course, in quotation marks, out there. Because through the new energies, of course, all sorts of things come up. You know, everything that has been suppressed for years, the old painful suppressed stuff, everything washes up in people, in countries, in places, and shows up everywhere, and of course creates corresponding feelings. And those who are practiced in simply looking inward, being conscious, and also diving into the shadows, doing shadow work, transforming the shadows, and then reintegrating this released energy, they will get through it well. For many, nothing is even washing up anymore because they have simply transformed so intensively in recent years that they are getting through it just fine now. But those who still have this ahead of them, and it will still be large parts of humanity, they won't know what's hitting them. And people can be quite confused during these months, chaotic and, well, maybe also somewhat indignant and latently aggressive. And it's important that if you're one of those who've already worked a lot on themselves and no longer have to face many shadows, that you can be there for others. But I also see that during this time, the fear matrix is being enormously dismantled. I mean, I've never seen it quite so clearly as in 2026, how this dark web is disappearing. The entire geometry of the earth is changing and becoming clearer. You can see more clearly into the smallest areas, and it's really worth staying with it, staying conscious and centering yourself in your heart to keep your head up in these turbulent times. The simulation and illusion of the fear matrix is collapsing into the real, true world that we are reshaping together. It's a transition from Earth to Eden. And that's why in this yearly outlook, I won't go into worldly topics so much, because the news fed to us through the media, whether conventional or alternative, represents maybe 5% of what is actually happening. And there's already far too much focus and thus manifestation energy from people on it. I see all the darkness in this world, precisely as these shadow parts that are now emerging individually and collectively to finally be healed and integrated. And that is exactly our task in 2026. And as I said, this will likely intensify because there's still quite a bit to do until 2027. And perhaps one of the most important tips The quiet is what's important, not the loud, because many still feel so drawn to the daily news and the daily headlines. And what did he do now? And what's going on in that country again? And is there going to be a war or not? And so on. But that's all just the screaming of the sinking old matrix. It's just making a lot of noise as it goes down, and that's all. And we shouldn't let ourselves be misled. We shouldn't chase after the loud. The quiet, what comes from within, what resonates and vibrates between people, that's what counts. Everything we're experiencing now goes deep through our bodies, through our feelings, through our being. And I'll go into more detail about that at the end. Because it's very important, this embodiment, this embodying of the new world. 2026 is probably the year with the most surprises we've ever experienced. And here too, there are those surprises and the others, yes. So it can be really tough for those who are still confronted with old shadows or who are still held by old certainties, who cling to the old systems that are now perishing. But it's worth it like never before. In a very short time, you can take big steps here, and it can already be like paradise for those who live from the heart and from consciousness. Overall, we see, especially in the period from May to October, many, many valuable seeds for the coming years. From November, there's another frequency change, another completely new energy. The shadow work should be mostly done. Of course, not everyone can process their whole life and all other lives and so on in a few months. But what we're being called to do now is being filtered, yes. And that should then be mostly done, yes. And then from November, it's about what you reflected on at the beginning of the year. So this topic, who am I? Who do I want to be? Where am I going? And then also what you've liberated throughout the year. It's then about really manifesting that now, bringing it out, going for your dreams, your life, your new being. The two major timelines I've been talking about for years continue to show themselves and continue to make our choice so important. I'll go into that again in a moment. Everyone will experience this year quite individually, depending on where they are, how they vibrate, what the soul still needs, and it will, when we look back on it, certainly be a legendary year. Let's come to a few points I've gathered about this year. For one thing, as you know, I always like to shed light on the Chinese year. And there, on February 17th, we enter the year of the Yang Fire Horse, which brings us a completely new energy, so really quite new, quite different already from the previous year. On February 17th, there's also a solar eclipse, by the way, and that fits very well with this new beginning. Before we are and were in the year of the snake. I spoke about that in my look at 2025. Essentially, it's about shedding a skin. Something old has died off, was allowed to go. And now with the fire horse, it's about concrete action into the new. Horses are in a certain way unpredictable. And that's a quality that we humans can increasingly adopt for ourselves in this time. Whoever is unpredictable is beyond any control. Whoever is unpredictable is impulsive, intuitive, makes their decisions from feeling, from their own intrinsic motivation. And that is very, very important. So some people still tend to associate something negative with being unpredictable. And that absolutely should be transformed, because being unpredictable is absolute freedom and self-empowerment. And such a year of the horse practically brings out these qualities, but also qualities like peace and independence, and also the power to make real quantum leaps. Such a year is usually characterized by increased dynamics, so a lot going on. Yes, a lot. Lots of change, lots of transformation, and an even higher pace than before. And at the same time, it also brings a lot of creativity, ideas, courage, and vitality with it. Together with these current ascension energies, it's extremely powerful. So all those who didn't quite know last year, and maybe even in the first quarter of 2026, which direction to take, or maybe sensed it but couldn't find the strength, they will now likely fall into a trot and then into a gallop. So the fire element that's added here, because it's not just a horse year, but it's a fire horse year, that means it's masculine and active, and thus also reinforces the natural characteristics of the horse. So there's a lot of energy and drive in there, and passion, and importantly, fearlessness too. So we have so much drive and courage that fear just falls by the wayside. We can ignore it more easily because the other things are just becoming more important and more urgent now. So 2026 is an absolute call to now also dare to take the step into the unknown. And then you can, of course, reflect on yourself. Where am I still stuck in my ways? Where am I stuck in old patterns that no longer support me, or in old relationships that no longer nourish me, that perhaps aren't even alive anymore? 2026 is very vibrant, and it also demands vibrancy from you. Everything that is dead falls away. Everything that doesn't come from the heart falls away. 2026 provides very powerful support for everyone who courageously faces their true dreams and finally wants to burn the old and gallop bravely into the new. And in such a fire horse, there's also a very strong physical aspect that provides a lot of potential to manifest, because that always goes through us. Manifestation always goes through the manifest, the physical. And all of that wants to be integrated and lived. The body, it has its very own intelligence, and that will become even more important in 2026. I'll go into that again later as well. The shadow of the fire, which I also want to mention, is that although your inner light shines more brightly, so you have this urge to go outward and you want to shine and so on, but if you don't know how to use the energy correctly, then it can turn against you, then the fire can burn you or burn you out. Specifically, that means if you don't live authentically, but instead use your fire for activities that your soul doesn't want to live at all. Or if you completely go overboard. Or if you try to hold back what truly wants to be lived out of you because you're afraid of it, then the fire will burn inward, and enthusiasm will turn into exhaustion, clarity will turn into fog. And that can then become really very exhausting for you. So there's also a certain responsibility in dealing very consciously with these forces that are being made available to us. Everything that burns within you wants to be lived truthfully. And if you live that, then you will see that your sphere of influence expands very quickly. You will truly be perceived and taken seriously. Yes, the resonances and synchronicities will appear everywhere, giving you a tailwind. The next point is numerology. 2026, the digit sum is a 10, so a 1, and that shows me that spiritual dogmas are increasingly clearing themselves away, out of concepts into real, true, lived spirituality, which does not reprimand and forbid and exclude, but which permeates everything. This entry into the fire horse on February 17th, 2026 is the 11. So we have once again a double reference to the 1. We have 3 times 1. And this one, that is unity. 1 is unity. 1 is unity among us all, but also the unity within you, in your divinity. And that is what this year is all about. When you are truly one in thoughts and feelings, then you are blessed with a quite magnificent power of manifestation. Then this synergy is restored within you, which as divine order in your life can simply manifest everything that aligns with your soul plan. Unity, that is the ultimate goal of all seekers, and we can experience it much more clearly in 2026. First within ourselves and then also in communities. A completely new field of consciousness of unity will emerge, be provided, and also connect conscious souls with one another. Yes, and the next point I want to discuss with you is the changes within us, so the light body process and the wave of consciousness. As I said, I have been speaking for several years now about the two major timelines, and it is important to understand that timelines are perceptions of reality, so reality programs. We run either in the destructive program or in the constructive program, in the high vibrating or in the lower vibrating one. And we do not choose this program by somehow deciding for it in the head, but we choose it with our own frequency. So with our whole being, we decide whether we choose the ascension line or the destructive line. And in the ascension line, a completely new human being emerges. Many people have been in the active light body process for several years, some since 1987, awakening more and more within themselves, in their divinity, remembering not only the past but also the future. With active genetics, so an active DNA, all the codes unfold that are stored deep within us, the codes that were active in other ages anyway. And now they're coming back, they're unfolding more and more. And also all the cosmic events like 3i Atlas or even the solar frequencies and solar flares, they help us a lot in our activation. I've often spoken in great detail about exactly what's happening there. In 2026, we'll be able to experience an accelerated evolution within ourselves and in many others as well. The light body process is entering a completely new phase right now. Our left and right brain hemispheres are synchronizing further, and that also leads to altered perception, changed interests, and so on. The psychic senses are awakening more and more, which for some people will lead to the confusion already mentioned and, well, actively necessary shadow work. It's really important now to have tools at your disposal, like THEKI, which really help you face these shadows because perception, it won't let itself be pushed away anymore like it might have been possible until now. Those who perceive but then can't act because they have no tools at hand can experience serious psychological disturbances. Probably only temporarily, but of course it's still very, very unpleasant and can be avoided if we have a kind of operating manual for ourselves again and just know, okay, if an old trauma comes up, what do I do then? If a relationship can no longer be lived but I can't get out of it, what do I do then? How can I deal with my own energetics? How can I live that? How can I change that? How can I cleanse? How can I transform foreign energies out of myself? How can I activate my DNA? These are all just incredibly important tools. And it's really worth dealing with them in this truly very intense process. Our white brain matter is also becoming more important, expanding and activating more and more. It's taking over more and more of our brain function, you see? This is related to certain factors that have partly already been scientifically researched and confirmed. I'll point again to my podcast on this. A look at 2025, I already mentioned it there. Or was it 24? I'm not sure anymore, but if you search, you'll find it. And also in the book The Sun Child by Giuliana Conforto, the astrophysicist, this topic is treated extensively. And it's really interesting because many people are noticing now that they can't remember certain things anymore. Mainly, these are things, well, that's something to observe, that concern the fear matrix, like old blame games, but also news, politics, or some movies, and so on. After a very short time, you often forget it again because that's a brilliant function of our wonderful body. This is not forgetfulness in the conventional sense. It's a completely natural letting go of unimportant gray, fear matrix-driven content stored in our gray brain cells. Instead, our white brain cells are actively increasing and multiplying, which pulse in the sense of the new world, in the sense of unity, love, and new consciousness. The world changes through us from the inside out. And through the increased pace, our power of manifestation also continues to accelerate. This also comes with an increased responsibility. Goes hand in hand, of course, because speed and reality are interconnected. Acceleration, when used correctly, always leads to an increase in vibration. And it's not just magic, it's also alchemy. Another topic is dimension hopping. There are a few topics I've already spoken about in recent years, especially in 2025, and they're still ongoing. And it's important to understand them so we can navigate through smoothly. For example, all the information I gave you about the pole shift and world change is highly relevant. We're right in the middle of that process. And these are magnificent processes, truly intense processes for us humans and for the Earth. And dimension hopping will also continue like this for a while. There's a detailed podcast about it, which I'll also be happy to link here. It's also called dimension hopping. And especially those who find relationships very challenging should listen to the podcast and understand it accordingly. Yes, and now I've told you, the first quarter is mainly about this topic. Who am I? It actually goes very deep when we delve into it. It's about a reality check between the outside and inside, which can be done repeatedly, but is truly necessary right now because so much has changed in recent years, and especially in the last year, and we constantly reposition ourselves in response to changes. If something changes on the outside, we have to reattune ourselves internally. If something changes inside, we create some kind of change on the outside. And sometimes the outside has changed, for example, new friends, a new partner, a new job, a new home, a new country, whatever it may be. But perhaps it all doesn't quite fit together yet with what's happening internally because everything has to reattune itself. And at certain times, that can trigger a kind of identity crisis in the sense of who am I actually? Am I still the person from last year or the year before that? What exactly has changed? Was it internal or external? You've gained insights, yes, and then you've changed things. And yet, sometimes it seems like something doesn't quite fit together yet, or is even missing. And in this first quarter of 26, it's about filling those gaps and harmonizing everything to truly stand in your own power again. And your relationship with yourself is also being put to the test. And there is no instruction manual for that. It's about really listening to yourself, listening to your voice, to your longings. The way you treat yourself is how you teach others to treat you. And then let's briefly turn to a few worldly changes that I've received for 2026. There are changes in the financial world, namely absolute chaos and reorganization. And I don't want to give you any instructions here. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, or whatever else. I actually don't think we can see it in 3D anymore because we're entering 5D and external values go hand in hand with internal values. And that's why it's so important that you do what feels truly right within you, in your heart. Be at one with yourself, be at one in your decisions, really clean with it. No matter what's in the newspapers or what any consultants say, it has to be totally harmonious within you, and then you'll be guided. And maybe you'll then be involved in some stroke of luck or whatever. Others can't know that. Your soul knows it. Others cannot walk your path for you. It is yours. Yes, and then there are also changes in the medical world, and everyone had their own entry into, well, questioning things and also the start of turning away more and more from the old systems and so on some level. And for me, it was the medical world very early on back then. And I've been observing this very intensely for many years, especially the whole thing with vaccinations. And the shots that were administered last year in recent years, which weren't vaccinations, but were called that. And I perceived the changes years ago. A lot has happened, and yet, of course, never in a way that really led to a breakthrough. On the contrary, Corona, this whole time, could have really meant a big breakthrough because many stood up, but they were so slandered, beaten down, and sometimes even locked up that it looked more like a step backward. But the way I perceive it, there's an enormous movement underway that will soon reveal itself. All of this, of course, is also related to the fact that since January 2025, so many things have been set in motion by the new administration in the US. Especially Robert Kennedy Jr. has, or is that his name? RFK, sorry, has initiated so much, changed so much. Yes, here in Europe, everything seems to just keep going as before. But in America, there have been a great many changes that won't be able to be ignored. For example, the removal of mercury from all vaccinations, intensive studies on vaccines that are finally happening now, which were never actually carried out in all those decades. We were only told that, and so on. In our news, the German-speaking ones, there's nothing about it yet, but it will come. And it's not the way it seems. A lot is happening underground. And even if the seeds are still under the earth and not yet visible, they are already sprouting vigorously. And I was shown that as early as 2026, there will be moments where they break through and where the first, often long-awaited and, above all, long-term changes finally become visible. Yes, there will also be changes in the religious world. And that was also passed on to me, that more and more people are turning away from established religions and more are awakening, that is, discovering the true divinity within themselves, discovering it in everything living, separating less and less, holding on to dogmas less and less, but instead really living true divinity, which is also the original meaning of the word religion, namely reconnection, the connection of the human being with something higher, which is our nature. And the whole thing happens rather quietly and silently. As I always say, we don't have to fight against the systems, that only feeds them. But if we very secretly withdraw our energy from them, because our attention is now simply going elsewhere, then these systems fall all by themselves. And yet not everything will be quiet and silent either. In 2026, I have actually also seen revolutions here and there. The fire energy of the year also manifests in the people, who then rise up and no longer accept some things as they are supposed to be served up to them. You see, last year, the snake, that's not really the character. It rather just slithers through and sheds its skin. But this fire horse, wow, that's something completely different. This can no longer be accepted, and it simply has to come out now. And so here and there across Europe and even worldwide, not everywhere, but in certain places, revolutions will emerge, both smaller and larger ones. Whether it's about religious issues, medical, financial, or very country-specific ones, it's simply not being swallowed anymore. Instead, fire is literally being spat. And perhaps some people are happy about this, those who have been waiting a long time for more to finally happen. But be aware, war energy always creates more war energy. And it really is a very fine line to let the fire out, to hold your ground, and also to clearly say no and say stop, but to stay centered while doing so and not act aggressively or in a warlike manner. It truly requires wisdom and consciousness. And since that's not present everywhere, things will escalate here and there. But as I perceive it, in the grand retrospective, it will be harmonious again. And what's important is that this comes from deep within. People have reached a threshold where it has simply become unbearable. And that is why it has such power, because it is real. Yes, and among the worldly topics is also the subject of AI, artificial intelligence. And I've already spoken about that too, AI versus intuition. There are also many changes happening because of AI. So some jobs will simply die out, entirely new ones will be created, and knowledge itself will be redefined. But this is the important part. AI is knowledge, not wisdom, and that is what will always significantly distinguish us humans from AI. And if we humans use the knowledge of AI wisely, then everything is fine, everything is in harmony. In this whole rise of AI, something very, very important is contained, namely the awakening of psychic senses in a very large mass of people. And I want to explain that to you because it's completely logical. Your mind will understand it too. The mind has now reached its limit in the story of AI. It has to admit to itself that AI is smarter, faster, and further along. It has to admit that it can be deceived, that it can no longer tell if this video is real, if this photo is real, or who can still be trusted. Did XY really say this, or is it a fake? You can't trust any message or anyone anymore. Everything could be fake. It's so well made with AI that the mind can't recognize it. And right now, divine evolution comes into play because our system is smart. It doesn't want to be inferior. It doesn't want to be deceived. So there can only be one solution: to awaken the clair senses, to turn them up fully again. The clair senses, that's our clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairaudience. And then, once they're there, nothing can deceive us anymore. Then we simply see that someone isn't real. Then we hear the lie. Then we know what's true and what isn't. We feel deeply what is human, what has heart, what is true and noble, and what is not. And that's such an important evolution that many of us have already gone through. This won't just help us use AI wisely, but it will make our whole lives more human. From the head into feeling, into the body, into the heart. And here too, it's not going to be easy for everyone. Those who haven't dealt with such things and their own abilities yet may be very confused at times. And now we're almost at the end. It's also about slowing down. All the internal and external changes I've listed and much more will occur in rapid succession, showing an even higher density of events than 2025. And that can be really challenging. It's important that we vibrate somewhat harmoniously with it and aren't in resistance. And for that, there's the magic word: slow down. Why? Quite simple. Your mind will tell you that you need to pick up the pace. When everything gets faster and times are quicker and more demanding, then you must be faster too and perform even more to be able to keep up. But the exact opposite is true. Especially when you step back, when you breathe, become calm, let the storm outside be a storm, then you arrive within yourself, in your essence. And that's where what you really are pulses. And then you can realize that you don't have to do anything, that you can let go, that, as Bob Marley so beautifully put it, you win the race exactly when you stop participating in it. Please store that deep inside you, because it will carry you through stormy times again and again. And there is a beautiful text by Marianne Byrne that I would like to share with you. Just be present and let everything be. Stop resisting the moment. Stop resisting what already is. You don't have to fix it, change it, judge it, or run away from it. Let go of the striving, the clinging, the insistence on how life should be. In your gentleness lies peace, a deep stillness in surrender. Let come what comes. Let go what goes. Stand as a witness, conscious, open, untouched in your innermost being. Even if the mind races, even if emotions boil over, you can stay here in this space of allowing. No pushing, no pulling, only presence. The breath flows in, the breath flows out. Life moves and you remain still within it. This is not giving up, this is awakening to the silent intelligence that moves through all things. You don't have to uphold the world. You only have to let go. In surrender lies freedom. In stillness lies clarity. By simply and effortlessly being, you naturally find your way back home. Yes, the new world, it's already here. In a new frequency band, in the plasma that overlaps with the current world. It's not just given to us, but it's up to us to embody it. Many are already living in it. It still seems like a bubble you live in, but this bubble is getting bigger and bigger. And it unites more and more with similarly vibrating bubbles, so that more and more unity and so on. The new world Eden is emerging. True embodiment. Through us, Earth humans means that we embody through us what we remember, what we receive, what we know and dream for the new world. We have to feel it, smell it, taste it, what we want to manifest. Concretely living the peace that we want to see in the world. Supporting the good food that we want to see globally in the future. Drinking the good water that we want to have all over the world. Living community, even if it's only in the smallest way, to give birth to this energy through us. This is how manifesting has always worked. This way and no other. Not through wishing, but through being. Humanity is what gives birth to the new earth. Every person, you too, me too, all of us. To do this with full power, accepting what is truly important. It sometimes seems contradictory, but only if we accept the current state, not approve of it, just accept it. Then we remain effective. Then we keep the power in our field, because we aren't in exhausting resistance, but give ourselves the freedom of choice. And besides, it is important to be in harmony with our body. If we want to truly embody something, to bring higher energy into this world, then we need a pure and well-nourished body, a flexible body that we love, which we inhabit with our whole soul, that is, we ensoul it. And you will find everything you need in my books and seminars to know how to turn your body back into such a tool. The change is not out there, it is within us, and it comes through us. It is not loud, it is quiet. Turn inward, there you will find everything you need. And perhaps the most important thing now at the end, you will notice more and more that all the detours through the mind, through others, through external knowledge or AI are no longer useful. You will notice more and more that only the path of the heart works. Only that makes sense, only that is supported, only that is feasible. Everything else becomes increasingly difficult, hurts increasingly more. And that is the last, but perhaps most important, and most intense reorganization that we still need before 2027. What does not come from your heart will not work. It might even harm you. So take good care of yourself. I wish you a magnificent, fulfilled, and light-filled, but above all, a very conscious 2026, in which you truly and genuinely arrive in your power and can truly roll out your effectiveness in love here for yourself and the whole world. The path of my heart. Deep within me is this light that shines for me on my path, which gives me trust again even after disappointments. Guiding me wisely through all times, it does not judge but loves. Loves without fear, without condition. Making my inner space visible and uniting me with myself. Making me immune to the talk or judgments of others. Never letting me give up. Letting me choose my words wisely. And teaching humility. Deep within me is this light that wants to shine brightly. And if I keep my heart open, then this light can also awaken the light in others, reminding us all of our divinity,